So in this video, I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about this new Lamy fountain pen called the Ideos. It's spelled I-D-E-O-S. So it's not really clear whether it's Ideos or Ideos, but I'll go with Ideos for now. It's a $110 or so fountain pen, so a premium fountain pen from Lamy that does not come with their 14K gold nib. So you're not in the truly premium class, but you're in there. They sort of have a middle ground of over $100 or around $100, still with the stainless steel nib. And a pen like the Studio might be in that class as a little cheaper, or a pen like the Scala. And a lot of those come either with the 14K nib or without it. Anyway, this pen came out in, I believe, I want to say September 2021, so it's a relatively new model. And we'll look at it uncapped as well. So what is the deal with the new Lamy Ideos? Why did they come out with this pen? What does it do for fountain pen buyers? What does it do for Lamy fans? So let's jump right into it. First of all, here's the packaging. I bought it from an official Lamy dealer, and it's pretty hard to find if you're gonna try to save some money and buy gray market or something. It's really just being sold through Lamy dealers at this point. Here's the box, standard Lamy gift box, and really nothing inside except for some instructions. And this one, it will come with I believe a Z57 converter. It will come with a single blue Lamy T10 cartridge, and then some instructions. Really not much to see there. Here is the pen. This color is called Palladium. It is a sort of titanium gray. It's all metal. The pen is a brass bodied pen, but it is coated in whatever it is that Lamy coats it with. They don't really get into specifics like that. Like I said, the color is they call it Palladium. It's a gray, like a titanium with a gold tinge to it, which makes sense. That's, I believe, what Palladium looks like. The texture is a satin texture, so it's not polished. It's a typical Lamy satin texture and fairly close to a Studio, but the Studio has a bit more shininess to it. This is the sort of material that tends to look more matte when you buy it and it's new, and to get more shiny and to lose some of that matte surface over time. It's actually, interestingly enough, it's what happens with the Lamy 2000. If you buy one of them new, it's very much a matte, flat surface. Over time, it'll start to kind of shine up a little bit as you use it. Okay, so only comes in the Palladium color right now, as I understand it. It is sold in a ballpoint as well, but no roller ball, no mechanical pencil. So pretty lightweight lineup. We see some telltale Lamy features, like a overall minimalist design. We also see this really nicely made clip, and it's spring loaded, which is, again, something we see in almost all Lamy pens. It's a nice, thick, heavy duty clip. I think it's steel. It's a little bit hard to tell, and it is spring loaded. Flat ends with a shiny surface kind of matching the clip there. And this is a matte surface matching the body. You could see the pen is teardrop shaped. So it's half circle, and then these 2 points, or these two sides of here, not really sides, but over here comes to an end here. So it's kind of triangular feel to it, but it is a teardrop shape, and that extends throughout the body of the pen to the cap itself. What does the teardrop do for you? It's interesting from an aesthetic standpoint. It introduces a bit of asymmetry, interestingly enough, because now the clip is on one of the facets or one of the sides here. It's not in the middle, and it's not on the rounded side. It's actually on this side here. So sort of interesting from a design standpoint. It doesn't really affect you functionally, although if you put the pen in your pocket, it is sort of inevitably like there's a round side facing you. Doesn't affect you functionally, just interesting. And then the teardrop shape, it will act as a roll stop. Even without the clip, so with the cap, obviously you have the clip, it acts as a roll stop. Even without the cap, the pen isn't round, so it'll inevitably go from one flat side to the other flat side. It doesn't favor one or the other, but it doesn't want to sit like this. It'll always roll one way or another based on your desk. It'll roll if you give it some pressure, but it doesn't want to roll. There you go. The pen has some design elements we've seen before, like this area up here where it's wider metal, then we see the same metal or a similar metal in a narrower section with these little tabs. That's similar to what Lamy did with the logo and the CP1, where you have this separate section here, and the pen, if you want to post it, it sort of clips on. This one is really tough to post. It'll get easier over time as these little tabs wear in, but it's really tough to post. It does post. The pen is absurdly long when it's posted, so I don't really know why you would want to do it. I can't write with a pen this long, but I guess some people might. This one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, over 7 inches long when it's posted. Just for reference, here's a Lamy Studio. You can see it's dwarfed, and here's how most people would write with the pen unposted. And you can see the Studio just wants to roll off. It's perfectly flat, so Lamy seems to have learned, perfectly round rather, Lamy seems to have learned her lesson. And here, this one is just to line up those tips. You have a good, like 2 inches extra when it's posted. A posted Studio, for reference, you could see it goes in, keeps going, keeps going, keeps going. And now it is about a full inch shorter than a posted Ideos. So big difference there if you do like to post your pen. If you want to unpost it, you give it a pull and it actually comes off very easily. The grip section itself is chromed, which I don't want to say a lot of people hate, but I know a lot of people have criticized Lamy. They just don't like either a metal section or there's something they don't like, a chrome section. The one thing I'll say is a chrome section has some grip to it, where a satin section like this has way less grip. Maybe that's counterintuitive, but chrome has that sort of shiny look, but it gives it a sticky feel. Whereas something like this that's matte or satin finished is just always slippery. And when your hands are a little bit dry or a little bit cold in the winter, this ends up being really slippery, and this painted grip or grip section, whatever you want to call it, I would avoid, whereas chrome doesn't have that same problem. It does look dirty all the time. My hands are, relatively clean, and thing is always covered in fingerprints. You just can't avoid it. It wipes off, but you have a pen that always looks dirty. It's a little bit annoying. We see it has a Lamy stainless steel nib, and this is the interchangeable nib system we'd come to expect from Lamy. But you'll notice it doesn't use the standard Lamy nib. It uses the sort of rounded, these kind of shoulder sections are rounded. Here is a standard Lamy stainless steel nib that you would see on nearly every other Lamy outside the Lamy 2000. So it has, you could see it's more angular. This one, I believe it's called the, I'm forgetting it. This is like the Z53 or something like that. Lamy has these Z codes, and we have it on unsharpened.com explaining each of the names. But you see the more modern rounded one. Here is the standard old school one. This rounded design we've seen before on the Lamy. This is called the Aion, A-I-O-N, which is a pen that has largely fallen out of favor with Lamy. I don't even think it's on their website anymore, but I think it's still available. I'd say it was kind of a miss, and Lamy doesn't really talk about it anymore. The Ideos has inherited that stainless steel nib with sort of the updated design. Functionally, they write the same, so it's not really a big deal, but it is interesting if you're a big Lamy fan. Taking the pen apart, we'll see some more interesting design changes we haven't seen before from Lamy. And basically, most Lamy pens, or all of them that I could think of, will completely unscrew, and they have a threaded joint here. This one, you turn it. That was like what? Not even a quarter turn, maybe a quarter turn. And now it just, so it's more than that actually. So not quite a half turn. And now it comes apart. And you could see these two little tabs hold it together. That tab even has a little rounded section to create friction. And instead of having threading here, you just have that little place where the tab goes. And then there is some sort of, I can't really get it in the light, but there's just a section, a little piece on the inside where these turn on the rails, and you can see where there's a little angle that creates more friction and eventually a stopping point to tighten it down. So you see, you put it in here, it can't go in any way you want. It just, you have to line it up. You line it up, you turn it, and I got that wrong before, but it's almost a half turn. And right now it's not quite locked in, and turn it the rest. Now it's fully locked in. Again, normally you just turn, comes out, no big deal. Works nicely. Here, it has a more precise mechanism where you turn it. Not here, I don't know why it has a halfway stop point, but turn it the rest of the way, pull it out, and there you go. And it locks in, no rattle, very solid feel. It's very cool. I have my questions about how long it'll stay perfect like this. Will it stay nice and tight, or will it get loose after, what happens when this pen is 5 years old and you've opened it up 1,000 times? What happens when it's 10 years old? Will it always be nice and tight like this, or is this little piece in here, is it brass, is it aluminum, is it a softer metal? Will it get loose over time? Who knows? But for now, it's great. So you hold the pen using the ridge is up. So you have flat, rounded bottom, and it is making you hold it like this. You can't really hold the pen like this unless you want to hold it on the ridge. You're holding it on the two flat sides of the teardrop with your finger being supported by the round side. There's that teardrop. So the pen, I would say, is opinionated about how you hold it, because this ridge is always going to want to be at the top so you can access the sweet spot of that nib. For some people, I know they love it. Other people, I know it drives them crazy. And this is not too different than what we would have seen on a Lamy Safari or some of their other pens, where there's really a particular way you need to hold it. Not the case with the Studio or the CP1, but definitely the case with a fair number of fountain pens where it's simply sort of faceted here or in some way opinionated. I don't mind it. I like holding it. The pen's a really nice size. I find it to be very comfortable. It is wider than you think it is. It's a lot wider than a CP1 and more in line with the width you would see in a Studio or a Mascala, something like that. But definitely wider than a Logo or any of those pens. So it's kind of like, as Lamy goes a little bit higher end, they tend to make their fountain pens wider and more substantial, and it has a really nice width to it. That actually makes it really feel comfortable when you're writing with it, and it looks a lot nicer. It looks like an expensive pen, whereas a CP1, even though it's a pretty expensive pen, selling for maybe $65 or something, it doesn't look particularly impressive in your hand. In fact, it's pretty tiny and it feels a little bit dated. Here is the Ideos against a TWSBI Eco, which again is a cheaper pen, but it has the size and feature set of a more expensive pen. You can see they're roughly in line, but obviously one is plastic and one is metal, and it's a lot more affordable to get a plastic pen with some extra size versus a metal one. The metal pen, you have to be careful with the weight, obviously, as well. And this one, I've been moving it around, so it's not really writing so well, but I will just note that Lamy's nibs aren't always super consistent. Sometimes they're a little dry, sometimes they're a little wet. and was to have a fairly large tolerance into like what is a fine and what's a bold, what's a medium, what have you. So I have been getting a bunch of Lamy nibs that are too wet lately. So I downsized, I bought a fine here, and now I ended up getting one that's really dry. So I'll probably switch this one out to a medium, but I wanted to keep the original nib on here so you could see those sort of the newer design. Anyway, so this is the Lamy Ideos in a fine. I didn't use the, sorry about that. This is the Lamy Ideos in a fine. I didn't use the stock ink, which is blue. I ended up using Lamy green. I would say this nib for me is a little bit not quite as smooth as I'd like, because I tend to use a rougher paper, and this has a little bit too much toothiness for me. So being a left-handed person and typically liking a wetter pen, I will be sizing this up to a medium. The broad or the bold, the broad in Lamy is very, very wet. So most people don't have to go that far, but I should have gotten the medium, or I may even go ahead and throw this one on there. That is an LH, that's the left-handed version of the nib, and it's a medium width, but it's ground for a lefty, which is ideal for me, obviously. So it's a nice writer in that it's very comfortable, and I enjoy holding the pen. For me, it's almost an ideal size and width. I'm getting used to the chrome. It's not really my favorite material to hold on to, but it's totally fine. And again, the pen just feels great in my hand. Personally, I would have preferred going with a Lamy medium. Obviously, I made the purchase myself, and I consciously picked a fine over a medium, but I ended up getting a fine that was too fine as opposed to a medium that is usually too much skewed towards broad. But that's just a little quirk with Lamy, so I'll swap out the nib myself. Anyway, nice writer. I've been using it for over a month now, and it's doing its job quite well. So in summary, I like the pen a lot. It's a little pricey at $110, and they're not available used yet, because it's only been on the market for a few weeks, but very nicely made, really good looking pen, a nice addition to the Lamy lineup. Lamy has a kind of an awkward middle where you have the Studio, the Scala, the Aion, all these other pens, and it's a little bit hard to differentiate them. But I think this is a keeper, and personally I prefer it over the Studio, and I think even over the Scala, which for me is a little bit too minimalist. This has some Lamy flavor to it, kind of like a dialogue, and the asymmetry, again, that's a lot like a Dialogue 1, and it has the Lamy Telltale titanium coloring, which is really nice. And overall, just a nice, cool, modern Lamy. So that's the Ideos. Thanks for watching.